The JonBenét Ramsey case, a deep dive into America's most infamous cold case. There is little doubt that the case of JonBenét Ramsey remains one of the most infamous and the most perplexing cold cases in the history of the United States of America. JonBenét, a child beauty pageant star who was 6 years old at the time of her death on December 26, 1996, in the home that she shared with her family in Boulder, Colorado, has been the subject of intense suspicion, public scrutiny, and significant curiosity from the general public for decades. Her death occurred in the home that she shared with her family. The case has not been solved, and there are a great deal of questions that have not been answered, despite the fact that there have been a great deal of investigations and attempts to solve the mystery. A Denver couple who were well known for their wealth and position in the city, JonBenét Ramsey was the youngest daughter of John and Patsy Ramsey. JonBenét Ramsey was the youngest of the Ramsey children. Patsy, who had previously been crowned beauty queen, was the one who first introduced JonBenét to the world of child pageants. Patsy had previously held the title of beauty queen. As a result of her extravagant performances and dazzling dress, the little girl gained recognition on a global scale in this particular sector. In the views of the outside world, the Ramseys' lives appeared to be perfect because they lived in a stunning home in a wealthy suburb. This gave the impression that their lives were always perfect. Nevertheless, the morning of December 26, 1996, when JonBenét's body was found inside their home, their ideal of a perfect family would be shattered. This was the moment that will forever change their lives. In the early hours of that morning, Patsy Ramsey placed a call to 911, alerting the operator that her son JonBenét had gone missing and that she had found a ransom letter demanding $118,000 in exchange for the child's safe return. It was then that she informed the operator that she had discovered the ransom note. The note was unique in that it was exceptionally long, in that it was written on paper from within the house, and it sought a particular sum that was almost equivalent to the bonus that John Ramsey received at the end of the previous year. Despite this, the police initially conducted their investigation into the matter as if it were a report of kidnapping. Despite this, JonBenét's father made the discovery of her lifeless body in the basement of the house after a number of hours of searching. A blow to the head that was particularly forceful was one of the injuries that JonBenét had endured. Additionally, he had been strangled with a garrote that he had constructed himself. In addition to this, there were indicators that a sexual assault might have indeed taken place. Immediately after the body of the deceased woman was discovered inside the residence, suspicions were immediately formed, and the investigation quickly became a sensation in the media. Criticism was leveled against the way in which the crime scene was handled from the very beginning of the criminal investigation. In the event if a large number of people, including friends and family members, were allowed to enter the residence, there is a possibility that the evidence could have been tainted. After some time had passed, the ineffective management would make it even more challenging to find a solution to the problem. Almost immediately, the investigation was focused on two basic hypotheses. Either a member of the Ramsey family was responsible for JonBenét's death, or an unknown invader was the one who committed the crime. People were led to believe that the family was involved in the incident due to their actions, particularly their decision to hire attorneys, and their early refusal to fully cooperate with the authorities. This led many people to believe that the family was involved in the crime. Patsy Ramsey's frantic call to 911 and the strange circumstances surrounding the ransom note were two of the causes that contributed to the public's suspicion of the Ramsey family, despite the fact that there were a lot of other factors as well. It was one of the most significant pieces of evidence that was found, and it was the ransom letter that was found on the stairs. The note was addressed to John Ramsey. The letter, which asked for $180,000, was extraordinarily lengthy and packed with phrases that the reader was not familiar with. The study into the handwriting was inconclusive. John Ramsey was declared not guilty, but Patsy's handwriting was discovered to be comparable to the note, despite the fact that she was never positively identified as the author of the note. The suspicions that the crime was staged were further fanned by the fact that many people found it unusual that someone would take the time to draft such a lengthy note in the house while the murder was being committed. This was one of the reasons why the suspicions were fueled. There was evidence that suggested that there might have been an intruder there, despite the fact that a substantial amount of attention was pointed in the direction of the Ramseys. The fact that there was an open window in the basement boosted the possibility that someone had entered the house through that particular entryway. The investigators found an unexplained boot print close to JonBenét's body, and the fact that there was an open window in the basement also raised the probability. In addition, the DNA that was found on JonBenét's clothing did not match any of the members of his family. Furthermore, male DNA, which may have been from an unknown assailant, was found, but the guy who possessed it was never identified. The investigation progressed, and as it did, a variety of possible individuals and possibilities entered the picture. Some individuals were of the opinion that Patsy Ramsey had accidentally killed JonBenét in a moment of frustration, and that the Ramsey family had fabricated the scene in order to conceal the fact that she had committed the act of murder. Some people had the idea that Burke, JonBenét's older brother, might have been the one responsible for the incident, but that his parents were protecting him from the consequences of his actions. These hypotheses, on the other hand, have been disproved to a considerable extent over the course of the years, particularly when the Boulder District Attorney's Office eventually exonerated the Ramsey family in 2008 on the basis of fresh DNA evidence. After the murder, the intruder theory gained more and more credibility over the course of the years that followed. John Mark Karr, a teacher who was acknowledged to have perpetrated the murder of JonBenét in the year 2006, was one of the most prominent suspects in the case. At first, the contents of his confession appeared to be consistent with the specifics of the crime. However, it was immediately disregarded when it was discovered that his DNA was incompatible with the evidence that was discovered at the scene of the commission of the crime. However, Gary Oliva, a convicted sexual offender who lived in close proximity to the Ramsey residence, was another possibility who was thought to be a possible perpetrator. However, his DNA did not match the evidence that was found at the crime scene. In spite of these latest discoveries, the inquiry has not yet been concluded. Due to the persistent media frenzy that surrounded the murder, several news sources and tabloids exhaustively covered every aspect of the investigation, as well as the Ramsey family's existence. This was done in order to ensure that the Ramsey family was accurately represented. It was JonBenét's pageant career in particular that became the focus of sensationalization, with her photo being used as a symbol of the case itself. Her picture was taken while she was wearing extravagant costumes and heavy makeup. As a consequence of this media circus, the investigation was subjected to a significant amount of pressure, which occasionally skewed public perceptions of the case and the individuals who were involved. Throughout the length of its existence, the case has been the topic of a great number of books, documentaries, and television specials, and each new perspective has served to reignite interest in the case. In response to a documentary that was shown on CBS in 2016, the Ramsey family has filed a lawsuit alleging that they have been defamed. The program made a suggestion that Burke Ramsey might have been involved in the murder of his sister. Despite the fact that it brought the case back into the spotlight, the documentary did not offer any answers that could be called final. In the end, the documentary did not reveal any answers. For the past few years, there has been a rising optimism that advancements in DNA technology would finally expose the truth about the case. This expectation has been growing steadily. For the purpose of determining the identity of the unknown DNA that was found at the scene of the crime, the Boulder Police Department has been working in conjunction with state and federal authorities to study novel forensic methodologies, investigating the possibility of using genetic genealogy, which is a tactic that has been successful in solving other cold cases, is one of the approaches that can be utilized. In spite of the fact that these attempts have been made, there have been no breakthroughs, and the investigation is still continuing on. There is a consensus among many people that the case of JonBenét Ramsey continues to be one of the most puzzling and heartbreaking mysteries in the history of modern-day America. In addition to the years of suspicion and scrutiny that they were subjected to from the general public, the Ramsey family's grief over the loss of their daughter was made even more devastating. As a result of Patsy Ramsey's passing in 2006, it is no longer possible to reach a conclusion regarding the case. Since then, John Ramsey has continued to advocate for justice on behalf of his daughter. Despite the fact that the investigation is still ongoing, there is still a hope that one day the truth will be found, which will provide peace to JonBenét's family and put an end to the search for her killer that has been going on for decades. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.